Welcome to the Sacred Window podcast. Here, we look closely at the intersections of the postpartum window, the Ayurvedic perspective on health and healing, and the universal mother principles that are the keys to giving and receiving effective care. Hello, I'm Christine Devlin Eck. I'll be taking you through interviews with professionals who are making a profound difference in the lives of their clients, conversations with individuals brave enough to share their stories of vulnerability as a way to lift up others, and my own journey through birth, parenting, caregiving, and building a conscious business. We are here to honor the sacred windows, the profound transitions in life that give it all meaning. Welcome to the conversation.
And I will never be the same again.
Welcome to the Sacred Window podcast. I'm delighted today to be joined by Angela Vargas. Angela is a local doula to me here in Western Massachusetts. But today we're going to be talking about generational care and receiving ancestral postpartum wisdom from our mothers and our grandmothers. Angela's from Colombia, and she birthed her daughter in Colombia, and she was able to receive beautiful care from her mother and her grandmother. And we're going to hear about how that felt. After leaving Colombia, she's lived in Colorado and now Western Massachusetts. She works as a birth and postpartum doula. She's expanding her work into sort of offering postpartum care through this Ayurvedic lens. But Angela is a busy, amazing caregiver in our area, and we're so lucky to have you. Thank you for being here, Angela.
Thank you so much, Christine. I'm very excited to join you today.
Yeah, well, I want to begin by thinking about the felt experience of being held. And when you think back to those early postpartum days when your mother and your grandmother were caring for you, what did it feel like in your body to receive that kind of ancestral care? I'm curious about if you have any like sensory memories, um, food memories. What, like when you think of your postpartum window, what feelings and memories come out for you?
Yeah, I love that question because honestly, just thinking about it makes me kind of teary-eyed in a good way. Like it makes my heart feel so warm. Um, yeah, I remember just my nervous system, despite the chaos and the transitions and the like novelty of being a new mom, a first-time mom, my nervous system was always kind of regulated, or I don't want to say always, because obviously I had my ups and downs, but I did feel completely held. And that felt just, I felt safe, obviously. I felt like there was honestly nothing expected of me. Like I had done everything by giving birth to my daughter, honestly. So everybody was just there to support me and hold me. So my body felt relaxed. And like I said, thinking back, it makes my heart feel warm because I feel like that's how I was feeling at the time. I was so held and supported that I felt very warm and contained.
What did the care look like? What were the routines that you remember your mother and grandmother providing for you?
Yeah. So one of the main things, it was 2020, so everything was very different back then. I remember coming home from the hospital and feeling a little, not a little, very scared because unlike here, I had a cesarean and I came home within 24 hours, which is crazy to me, but also it ended up being good because my mom stayed with me for the first week. So she was always home with me and my husband, my daughter. And during that time, there was a lot of like trying to figure out breastfeeding and like me thinking that my milk wasn't coming in and all those things that typically happen. And I remember getting so caught up in that I never thought about eating at all. Like I was in bed the whole time with my daughter trying to figure everything out. And I remember just my mom like always coming in with food to remind me of eating. Like I didn't have to worry about that because she was there to provide that for me, like make sure I was nourished. So she was always bringing in like chicken broth and that kind of thing to like literally feed me while I was feeding my daughter or while I was trying to feed my daughter. So that was like one of the main things for me. My mom being there, sitting with me while I was trying to nurse my daughter and like literally feeding me my food so that I could take care of my daughter. So that was the main thing. And then another really big thing was my grandmother from the distance, because, like I said, everything was very different. And my grandmother was in her apartment, but she was still taking care of me somehow. So she was always thinking about what can she or what could she send to my apartment to make sure I was taken care of. So like I remember one of the biggest things for her was grape juice. And this was for her, like, I don't know if that's actually how it is. I don't know if that grape juice actually has any iron in it or not, but basically for her, it was kind of like to give my body that blood back. So like I had lost a ton of blood from the cesarean and like giving birth, and she was kind of restoring my blood through that grape juice. So she was sending me tons of grape juice every single day and calling me all the time to make sure that I was drinking my grape juice, eating my soup, and like just taking care of my body and restoring my blood and my, yeah, all of the fluids that I had lost basically. So those were two of like the biggest things I remember. Um, Another big thing with the routine was like my I didn't just have the care of my mom and my grandmother. I had my sister, I had my dad. Like we really did have our village there. So my dad would go from like 9 p.m. to 3 in the morning to be with my daughter so that my husband and I could have those hours of sleep. And then in the morning, my mom would take her at like 6 in the morning so that I could take another nap and get ready for the day. So that was like huge for us. It helped so much. And then my sister would come in the afternoon. And like, again, even though it was a crazy time and everything outside felt very chaotic, I feel like we were very lucky and very blessed to be in our bubble and extremely contained by all of my family.
Oh my gosh, that is just so beautiful. And I can just hear, I feel like the image of like your grandmother calling you every day to make sure you drank your
Yes.
juice. When you were leading up to your postpartum window, did everybody talk about what the plan was? Did you have an idea?
Not really. I feel like that's one of the things that I just took for granted, honestly, because it's very cultural. Like coming to the States and seeing the huge difference, like that was a huge cultural shock because for us is very given, honestly. Like I didn't think about asking. I didn't nobody talked about it because it was kind of like expected, so to speak, or everybody already knew that everybody was literally going to be taking care of me. And the thing is that my grandmother has always been like into nourishing everybody. She's always had food for everybody. So she kind of already knew that she was going to be taking care of us by sending food and like sending these juices and all of that stuff. My mom and I obviously had talked about her staying home with us for a little bit, and the rest just kind of like started flowing as we went.
It's so beautiful. And I didn't realize that it was over the pandemic that you
Yeah.
gave birth. And so that adds a whole other layer of, how are we going to figure this
Mm-hmm.
out? And maybe not as like your grandmother not coming in person. Do you feel, I mean, I think that so much of what I'm hearing is also this layer of psychological safety. Like, even though, maybe it wasn't as much in-person care support as you would have liked, the fact that you were being attended to, even from afar with
Mm-hmm.
your grandmother, I just think that knowing that people are paying attention to us and thinking about us in itself is a layer of nervous system.
Yeah.
We can sit and feel safe because we
Yeah,
know that people are looking out for us.
absolutely. Yeah, and I think that like again, we were very lucky. My mom was kind of preparing for that moment for a very long time. So she's a dentist. She was always wearing all her protective layers and whatnot. And she stopped working like before my daughter was born to make sure she was not exposed to anything so that she could be home with us. Um, and I remember just that feeling of exactly what you described a moment ago, like feeling so safe and so seen because like even the first time she came in with food, like for me, it was, I don't know, it was crazy because like you think that, again, oftentimes everybody's so focused on the baby that they kind of forget, so to speak, about the mom or the birthing person. And it felt so, yeah, like so beautiful to me to like have my mom come in and not focus at all, like not because she was not excited about her, but because she was more concerned or like more into nurturing me since I was already nurturing my daughter, like having her come in my room and sit down on the bed and like starting to feed me. And I remember just thinking and feeling like this is amazing. Like I thought she was gonna want to be with her granddaughter and that's it, like it felt so beautiful to have that, yeah, that support. Like it was just I did feel very safe and like emotionally it just felt amazing to have that.
Mm. I know for, a lot of Westerners, we feel guilty of letting other people take care of us. Did you feel any of that, or do you feel like because it was just part of your culture growing up, it
I
just
didn't feel any guilt at all, honestly. I feel like I grew up with that. Like I remember my aunt giving birth and going through the same thing. Like everybody was there for her. We have the whole dieta, which is like the 40 days postpartum, even though that's more from like traditional culture and I'm just from the city and it's not as strict obviously in the city, but my aunt still followed it like very strictly. And I remember like the windows closed with just the tiniest bit of air coming in to like let the air circulate. But it was very like everything was very making sure she was warm and like making sure she was nourished. And everybody that was coming in was taking care of her. So I grew up seeing that. I grew up kind of like knowing or again, I took it for granted, honestly. I thought that was the norm. I didn't think it was the exception, which was crazy for me when I came here and realized how blessed I was to have that there.
was there a point in your postpartum window where it started to feel harder? How are you sharing your gifts and passion for caregiving with others? In a world where education and awareness around the postpartum window is lacking or missing from our modern systems, we have a profound opportunity to shift that paradigm. You may be a few simple offerings away from making a truly impactful difference in the lives of mothers and families in your community. We are here to support your journey in the ways that work best for you. Schedule a conscious care strategy session to meet one on one with me, and let's identify the right next step for you to begin a path of conscious care for new families that fits your life and your needs. Visit www.sacredwindowstudies.com/strategy-session to schedule a time that works best for you. That's www.sacredwindowstudies.com/strategy-session.
I think honestly, while I was there, it always felt very contained. Again, without saying that it was all rainbows and butterflies, because of course it comes with all its ups and downs, figuring out a new baby, figuring out the hormones, figuring out all of the things that come with that. But it just always felt like we had so much support that it made it so much easier. I think the point where it shifted was coming here when my daughter was 6 months. And I feel like people tend to think that at that point, kind of like it's no longer postpartum, but it was very much postpartum still for me. So we came here in April and it was freezing. So that alone was already a huge shift. Like it was so warm there and my body felt good. It was so easy. And then coming here and like it being cold, the house feeling cold, outside being cold, everything was cold. Um, and very isolating. So I think that was the point where it shifted, honestly. Not in Colombia. Like again, it didn't feel good all the time, but it felt very safe and very contained. And then moving here felt very, very isolating. Like it was really difficult to transition, like adjust to life here. I remember saying to my husband, like, I feel like I'm going crazy. Like, I don't know what to do with myself here. Like, we had all this support. We had people taking care of us and our daughter and like all these things. And now we are here and like we don't have anybody. We had my mother-in-law who was very helpful, but she would take care of my daughter whenever needed, but that was it. There was not all of this aspect of the nourishment and like taking care of me, and all of this was just all of a sudden not there anymore. So that was the really difficult part. I feel like from my daughter being 6 months all the way to a year old, it felt really, really difficult, honestly.
Hmm. When you were in, like, at what point did you decide to become a doula?
Um, I don't know exactly the moment, but I remember. So I decided first I wanted to be a birth doula because I didn't have the birth experience that I wanted. I come from a city and midwives are not a thing in cities in Colombia. Like they're a thing, obviously, when you go to traditional villages or like, but they're not a thing in cities that I'm aware of. I remember looking so much into it and not finding anyone. So I ended up with a cesarean that was very unnecessary. And I think probably when my daughter was around a year old, that's when I started to really process what had happened and like understand that it didn't feel okay with me. Like as much as postpartum support as I had, the birth was a different story. So like it everybody was okay with the cesarean. Everybody was in the whole mindset of like baby's fine, you're fine, be grateful, and that's it.
Yeah.
So that was a different story. And I think when my daughter turned a year old, that's kind of when things really started to come up for me. And like I was like that. I remember just started crying and like that shouldn't have gone that way. And I didn't know that I had options and all those things. And that's when I started looking into doula trainings because I had heard of the word doula, but I was not like aware of what the work was or what doulas actually did or anything like that. So that's when I started looking into it and I found my first training. And that's kind of like when I decided to go down that path. So yeah, around when my daughter was a year old, sort of.
Mm. And, I know that you are starting to incorporate more postpartum care.
Mhm.
How has your own experience of being cared for by your family, how does this impact the way that you show up as a care provider for families?
I think it's honestly everything to the way I show up because I remember that feeling obviously so vividly. Like I said, like just thinking about it makes me feel so warm, so contained, so supported that that's exactly what I want for the people I care for. Like I want them to feel and experience all of those things that I was so lucky to have and that like I said I took for granted, and now that I know it's not as common here as it was for me to receive that care, I want to be able to show up for people exactly like that, like with that tenderness and like with the knowledge and obviously understanding postpartum, but very much within that like tenderness and being there for the birther and like the family as a whole, basically. So I think it's literally everything about who I am as a caregiver for postpartum. Yeah.
I find this like the challenge, it's like for people who are called to this work, we feel the call and we feel that heart and passion and we see the imbalance and we know these things. But when we come up against families that are limited in their resources or isolated from family or don't have the support network, and it feels often weighty for the doula to recognize that they kind of only have me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious about if you've experienced anything like that, and if there's ways that you've tried to help create a bigger safety net for families.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that is a really big point. I work with a lot of people, for example, that are covered from Mass Health. And unfortunately, with Mass Health, as great as it is to have that coverage, it only covers so many hours for perinatal support. So people only get 8 hours of support for during their pregnancy and postpartum. Like those 8 hours have to be divided between both. So when I show up and I only have 1 hour or an hour and a half to help these families that, as you said, like a lot of them don't have anybody else, literally, it does feel like, oh my God, like I just want to be able to help them so much more and experience care so much more thoroughly than being here just for an hour and leaving and then doing that 4 times, 5 times. So I work with a lot of other doulas, and we just kind of try to build a support system for those families. And since we are very limited with how much we can actually do, a lot of it is also like building a resource list for those families where they can have support groups or whatever it is that can make their experience a little easier. I feel like for me, for example, when I moved here, it would have been huge if I had known that support groups could have been a thing. So support groups, if there's any need for any mental health support or anything like that. So a lot of it is building that resource list and giving families those resources so that they feel a little more supported. That's kind of like what we can do, and that's what I try to do a lot.
Yeah, I feel that. And I'm always heartened too, because as we see more and more awareness about the postpartum window, more people are starting to experience that. And what I was thinking about earlier as I was listening to you is that when you have the opportunity to be cared for like that, it becomes non-negotiable that
Mm-hmm.
you're going to give that care to your daughter one day and to your friends and to,
Mm-hmm.
then we start to see it expand in a way that becomes generational as a culture.
Mm-hmm.
We've been
Absolutely.
so bereft of the understanding of how to heal and how important it is for the mom, the people who give birth to actually have the qualities around them in their food and in their rest and in their company that actually gives them sort of the open pathway to walk
Mm-hmm.
that journey of
Yeah.
healing, which will happen automatically. It's like if we provide the presence and the nurturing, the body knows what to do and the body will heal itself. I
Mm-hmm.
found as I was listening to you too, is that I mean, I've known you for a few months, Angela, and I feel like every time we've spoken, you just have this like grounded, like stability about you. And I sensed that, even when things were not easier, it was a tough day. There's a difference between like this is hard and I'm still okay
Mm-hmm.
versus this is hard and I don't know that I can maintain this. This is not sustainable. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just can see, of course, this is your constitution, I think, has this groundedness in it, but also that's the impact of being cared for.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
We become
Yeah.
resilient to the hard things.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think honestly, that part is like 99% of why I'm able to remain grounded. Like I have moments where it does feel like, okay, I can't anymore. now and back then, obviously. But I've always been so supported and so held that that's it. Like for me, that's it, honestly. Like even more so than my own energy is having that force and that energy around me that carries me through, honestly. Like I'm very held by my mom. Like again, even from the distance, like I live in a different country. My mom is still always checking in, like she's always calling. My dad's always calling. My grandma, even if it's literally she calls for like 30 seconds just to ask how we are and if we're eating well, if we're taking care of ourselves with the winter and stuff like that. So like I've always been so cared for and so supported that that is definitely a big, huge piece of it.
That was my next question is that, now as you're here and you're very far from home, I'm sure that's really difficult at times. And
Mm.
what do you feel like the lasting impact of the care that you received from your family? Of course, you received that care your whole life, but there's something really special about
Mm.
being cared for during that portal we walk through where we're not only the child anymore, we're also the parent. And so what from what did you take away from your postpartum window that you still nurture yourself with now when your family is so far?
Oof, honestly, I think just like I said, having, for example, like that image is just something that's very much there for me consistently. Like having my mom walk in with the soup, that is like the constant reminder of taking care of myself first. Like I feel like just like I was so caught up back then with figuring out breastfeeding and figuring out how to feed my daughter and figuring out everything that was so new. I get so caught up in my job, in my like all the responsibilities that I have, that it can be very easy to forget to take care of myself first. And that's like a constant reminder. And I'm very grateful and very glad to have again my mom call me every day and like be that constant reminder. But yeah, I think that probably that image is one of the biggest things. Just like I need to nurture myself first so that I can nurture others. I need to give to myself first so that I can give to others. And I need to be well so that I can support others and help them through or support them through these big changes that they're experiencing.
Mm, that is so beautiful. Yeah, that's a piece, the self-care, particularly through these really busy full years
Mm-hmm.
of parenting. Um, that's often the first thing to go.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, everything around us is impacted.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm hearing and appreciating is this shift that happened when it was your care was so important to your
Mm-hmm.
family that it imprinted you with the understanding, even when they're not there,
Mm-hmm.
I have to take care of myself.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like one thing that my mom said to me back then, and she still repeats it when she feels like I'm forgetting it, is like, you are a mom and you're also you. Like, you have to be yourself first. You have to, again, like put yourself first. But that was something that she always reminded me of from like the beginning of my pregnancy all the way through my pregnancy and all the way through those early postpartum days. Like, you are yourself. You're not just, but like your whole identity is not just a mom. Like you're Angela, so you have to be Angela as well. Like, what is it that makes you happy? What is it that makes you feel good? And that's something that she always like reminded me of and wanted me to have very present. So I think that's still big for me.
Mm, that's beautiful. Angela, this has just been so lovely. Is there
Mhm.
any last thought that you have about that feeling, that amazing experience that you were able to have of being held by your family?
No, I think I've described it as much as I possibly can. And like I said, I want obviously everybody to be able to experience that. And I know that it can be hard sometimes, but just whatever village can be there for people during the postpartum period. I hope that anyone listening to this, if they have the opportunity to be that village or be part of that village for a new mom or a new birthing or a new parent in general, then I hope everybody takes that opportunity and provides that for that person.
Mm, thank you so much. I'm going to put Angela's website and page on the show notes so you can check out the beautiful practice that she has. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you for being part of the Sacred Window community, Angela, and for sharing your story.
Thank you so much, Christine. This was amazing. I'm very, very happy to have shared.
Shanti, Shanti.
The Center for Sacred Window Studies has been training postpartum care providers, professionals who work with new families, and individuals passionate about postpartum care since 2018. We regularly host live free events alongside our online and in-person training and certification programs. Hop on our newsletter list to get direct access to all of our events and community support gatherings. Our mission is not only in training conscious postpartum care providers, but in fostering a robust, informed, and thriving community of postpartum professionals. Once you step inside, you're family forever. Visit www.sacredwindowstudies.com to add your email to our newsletter list. You can support our work by subscribing to the Sacred Window podcast and sharing with someone you know who would love it. Thanks for being here and participating in the culture-wide shift that recognizes the need for and the importance of conscious postpartum care.